Okay, commission discussion of items of interest and concerns. I guess what I would like to talk about a little bit about is this Peck Orchard thing. Not really maybe how we feel, but I really want to go slow in the discussion of this. I'd like us all to put, I know that if they want to do it and it does go through, they need to start planting things and seeding early, but I think that we owe it to the people that have been here and have concerns that we take our time. And I'd like to see us all come back at the next meeting with our pros and cons and have time to, I mean, we got more stuff here to digest. I mean, I took a quick peek. I mean, don't ask me what most of it said because we haven't had time to digest it. So I'd like to really digest, and then I would like to ask Kevin to give us his feeling about the drainage, because there was a lot of stuff talked about that tonight. Mr. Trout saying, it's not. So I'd like a little more information from you and how you feel about that and the 100-year storms and all of that.
I can give that to you now if you'd like.
Okay, I'd love to hear about it.
Yeah, just the talk about storms and this 100-year, 10-year sort of thing, just so you understand. 100-year storm has a 1% chance of happening in any 1 year. They call it a 100-year storm just because it's convenient. You could have 5 or 6 of them in any 1 year, but there's only a 1% chance typically. Our typical road drainage is designed for a 10-year storm. That's got a 10% chance of happening. So that means it could be exceeded any number of times in any 1 year. That's one of the basics about drainage designs. It's designed to handle just a certain size storm. The drainage system that the applicant proposed, I reviewed. I believe the number they were given was either incorrect or they misunderstood. I believe that the number they were using for the 100-year, or the 1% storm, was greater. Probably, I think the number is 6.9 inches per hour. And again, it's not a 100-year flood.
Yeah.
It's a 1% storm. The flood is what happens when you get all that water down, but it's not necessarily equal to a 100-year storm. It gets a little technical, but in essence, I reviewed the drainage computations. I'm satisfied that the stormwater management plan that they put on the plan and gave me the computations form is adequate to handle the 1% storm or the 100-year storm as it was designed.
Kevin, does the state road drainage system run into the wetlands or into the brook?
Well, I know that the drainage goes down the hill. There's a cross culvert, and that's a town road. Those photographs you saw with the water, well, if the water wasn't there, then there wasn't any rainfall because it's got to, when it falls on the pavement, obviously it has to go down the edge of the road. And then it goes into there's I think a small catch basin there that goes underneath the culvert, and then at some point in time it ends up in the brook, and the brook is on the south side of the road, probably a couple hundred feet away, but it does end up there. Now there was also some statements made about TR55, and all TR55 is it's a method, a computational method used to calculate peak storm quantities coming off the site, and also volumes of stormwater so that you can design stormwater detention basins. The TR55 method is used and specifically mentioned in the DEP drainage manual. It's right there. You will use this method. So there are other methods out there. However, Connecticut, I believe New York, and Massachusetts were licensed in all 3 states, all use the basic TR55 or the SDS method. There's always studies about whether they're appropriate or not. But in this particular case, my experience has been is when you do a pre and post analysis of stormwater runoff from the site, for a site like this, you get a much larger detention basin or detention volume required. In other words, you get a very conservative numbers coming off there for your design. So they're not quite as they were represented, at least in my experience anyways. Is it perfect? No, but it's a method that everyone uses, most everyone uses to model drainage analysis, and most states dictate that you use it.
Kevin, what was your response to the gentleman from Canton or wherever, all those stormwater comments? What do you make of all that?
Well, this gets back to the 1% business. Again, we've had a number of storm events which have been at the would be considered 50 or 2% storm or a 1% storm. But again, you can have them. It's the 1% chance in any 1 year. But again, you can have 6 of them in 1 year. Mm-hmm. It's not normal, but statistically,
nothing is normal anymore.
Right.
Well,
and it seems that the storm events aren't actually worse. In other words, we're not getting 12 or 14 inches of rain, but we're getting more frequent 6 or 7 inch rainfalls in any 1 year. So if the stormwater system is designed to handle that storm, you can get 10 of them in 1 year. As long as it's designed for it, it will handle it adequately.
What do we require of a driveway? If there was a driveway, would a driveway have to put in any water runoff protection at all?
I don't get involved with reviewing plot plans for building permits. The only time I get involved is with subdivisions, and what we look for in the subdivision review is the fact that you don't want to have water from coming off a lot going out into the road.
I know for subdivision, I'm just wondering for a driveway. Do you know?
I don't.
I'd like to know that. I think that's important.
The answer is no.
No, there's no
requirement.
Now, do the Lewandowskis have a storm drain?
No.
I mean, certainly they've got a driveway.
Certainly not. I would say that the vast majority of driveways that come off the road in town, there's no storm drain. The water, if in fact it's pitching towards the road, the water will go off the road and normally go down on a Crown Road, along the edge of the road to the nearest storm drain, or just drain off onto the side of the road. That's the
into the nearest water courses. What they do all over.
If it's going into a storm drain, it's probably going perhaps into a water course. Sometimes it just discharges onto a piece of property somewhere. But to suggest that there are catch basins at the end of a driveway designed to collect the water from the driveway, very different.
So this is an improvement.
Has the town ever denied a building permit because they're going to remove too much dirt?
Not that I know.
No.
Do we have any influence at all on whether or not the applicant could turn around and get a building permit? Does this commission have any?
No. I would say no. If Bill issues a building permit, he's not going to bring a building permit to you.
Right.
If Bill issues a building permit, I guess you take action to stop that building permit. Appeal the decision to issue it, but
I think
certainly I have never seen that.
Yeah, and I think that somebody who owns a piece of land they don't have the right, as Eric has always said, to have the highest amount of value out of that, but they have the right to have some value.
Well, we have regulations on how much you can remove off a lot, right? 300 yards?
Yes, we do. Without any type of building permit or anything else, if you just want to go and remove material off your property, there is a regulation which is a maximum of 200 yards in any one given year.
Okay.
Oh, so then in one given year, so they could go back
up to 3 years. So you can get 600 yards.
600
without doing anything.
No.
But if somebody wanted to carve a site on the top of a mountain, and they were issued a building permit, there must be some kind of baseline level we could figure out that would be kind of, a normal allowance that Bill might, just as a baseline.
Obviously, when Kevin looked at this last plan, which was just a suggestion, they used all the actual maximums, and so the maximum driveway was 15%. They didn't cut in at 8% so they could take out more materials. They actually used it at a 15% driveway, and that's how that whole plan was developed, to actually take out the minimum amount of material necessary to get a building lot.
Well, that was a question, I think, was whether that plan actually did that. You weren't sure.
That's what they did. Now, if they brought that to Bill, I think he would say, we've discussed this, is let's not create a 15% driveway here. It doesn't make any sense. Why don't you create an 8% driveway or something that's more reasonable, which would require more material to come off the site.
But the
You understand that because the 15% driveway is like this, and 8% driveway is like this, to get that, you have to excavate
Yeah, but
more
once you get to the
material.
site, they're also taking a lot of clearing.
Actually, under the idea plan, the second plan, they really weren't. And so they had slopes coming down to the little bit of yard that were very steep all around the property. It really was like they were putting into a hole. Now, again...
Are you talking about the two building lots?
Yes.
You're the two building lots.
The second plan, the two building lots.
Okay, yeah.
So they showed the house kind of in a hole. And now, again, would the building official say, yeah, that's fine, I'll let you do it, or would he say, hey, that doesn't make much sense. Let's slope this out away from the house a little more reasonably, which again requires more material to come out.
The other thing was that when I took a look at the driveways, the driveways did comply with the subdivision regulations. For this two
I'm
lots.
sorry, I didn't hear, did or did not?
They did.
Okay.
They did. And as a
What is that grade?
split,
The subdivision grade is,
it's 15%, yeah.
really, that should be changed.
So they could come in and file for an 8% driveway and take out 150,000 yards?
Well, you're asking me a question that really Bill would have to answer, but I would say that as a building official who's looking at a reasonable development of a site for a single-family home, that it would be logical to assume that he would say, you know what, let's not go with a 15% driveway when we can do an 8% simply by taking out more material.
So all their presentation is based upon a 15% driveway?
No, on the plan 2, which is without
The two
going through
lots.
this process.
With the two lots.
Okay, but if they split and they come in with 2 driveways,
Yeah.
that opens up a real big can of worms.
Right, then you leave all of the material in the middle, right?
Yeah,
So
probably.
Kevin, once again, this isn't peaks and valleys where they can do cuts and fills to make a level spot.
There are peaks and valleys, but it is so steep you cannot do cuts and fills. You can only do cut. Because, you've got the road here, you've got the site there, you've got to get in between, or you've got to lower the top. And the only way to develop it and put a house in there is to lower the top.
And that is permissible under our regulations. It's not a unbuildable lot that we'd like to talk about, because I'm not
That's
sure
right.
what an
That's right,
unbuildable
because
lot would be. It would be
legal
one that
record.
would have
And as
a
far
water
as-
course that you
yeah.
couldn't go over, or would have trap
Or
rock.
if it were subdivision.
If it were subdivision.
Right.
But a single
Much more
lot,
control over under
Yeah.
subdivision.
Single lot.
Because other
Then
regulations.
you could have,
apply.
yeah.
this all-
So then, would it be a fair statement, in both of your opinions, that we have more control over what happens there with a single lot, with a single driveway access and 2 lots than we would with 2 driveways? And
Well, clearly you have more control under the special permit process, because you can limit, it's limited under regulations to 5 days a week. You can limit the hours, you can take out holidays, you can require things like the buffers. There's so many more controls. Under the building permit application, there are no controls. They could, as one person said,
They can go in a
take the
clear cut.
material out
They
7
can go
days
in
a
a
week,
clear cut. They
all
can go in
kinds
a
of
clear
hours.
cut,
They
yeah.
could cut all the trees. Yeah.
They could take 5 years doing it, too.
Yeah.
the town, the Board of Selectmen of the town never went with a noise ordinance, or you can do
They have not.
construction?
That's been presented a number of times, and they...
Construction
How
7
could you
days
do
a
it with
week?
construction?
Couldn't do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's...
Yeah.
What's that? Oh, well, here, I'm just kidding.
Well, the timing is an issue, seems to be a huge
Yeah.
issue too, the fact that it's going to go on for 2 years.
Well, if we don't do anything, it could go on for 5.
Yeah.
But look what they got out of Janeski's. Maybe it was an easier...
Well,
No, it's only right across the street.
Yeah, there's only right across the
Yeah,
street.
that was...
You guys are all 20 miles.
Well, one of the big concerns I have is the quality of the road. Peck Orchard Road is built on the side of a hill. You get these big trucks going up and down, you could wreck that road, and it could cost a lot.
And I think under this permit, you could require a bond. We can photograph the road and let them know that at the completion of the operation, they need to rebuild the road or put the road back to the condition it was in previously.
I believe they've had some discussions with Jamie Clace about that. And
Yeah, they have.
I do believe they made some
Work on the
representation
drainage
that
at
they
the same
would
time.
be agreeable to
Worst
repair
two
the
evils.
road if it was if it was damaged.
But they could make some drainage improvements. I mean, you could end up with maybe an improved situation.
Well, you got to be careful on off-site improvements.
Yeah.
Because under law, you really can't. You can ask them to put it back the way it was, but to make them do something more than that, put in drainage, I think you're shaky ground.
Also, in this case, I think you may be better off just letting what's going on in the road itself continue to go on, because that's a very difficult thing to control. And as long as they can control the water on the site, I think you're better off keeping those two separate.
Okay, I heard that twice. No,
One of the
no.
most annoying noises is that Jake brake.
Well, that's...
You know, and if they're returning, there's no reason to use the Jake brake to get into Peck Orchard.
That would be I guess would have been a question for the applicant, whether or not they need the Jake brake. I don't think on an 8% grade
It goes down to more.
they need one. I mean, we could do some investigation on that, but I mean, Jamie Clayton.
Because that makes that terrible noise.
Right. There are a lot of towns I've seen that actually ban it in the central.
Could it be a condition that they not use it, period? And they figure out a way not to...
It could be if it's reasonable.
Well, anything's reasonable, I mean...
Well, I don't want them to drive down the driveway and keep it.
Yeah, exactly. If they need to bring the staff, then maybe...
One last thing.
Right.
Forgive me, I'm sorry for interrupting you.
That's okay.
Is there any way that we can ensure that two buildable lots end up at the end? One of the things that I don't want to have happen is they say, we intend on, and all of a sudden, we get to the very end, and all of a sudden they drive away and say, now we decided that we're not going to.
I was in the meeting with the marshals and the applicant and their attorney. And a list was submitted tonight by the applicant saying the things they would agree to. One of those things was to actually have they would agree to a deed restriction that actually says no more lots.
Up front.
Right,
Yeah.
right. And that could become a condition of your approval
And no more
because they've
mining.
agreed to it.
And
You
no
couldn't
more
do it as a
mining.
condition if they didn't agree to it, but they submitted it, say, we agreed to this, therefore you can add that.
Okay, well then that's good. I think if we do that, then we can say, no more excavating, you're all done, you're done.
Yeah, if they actually have to
And you've got
create
lots.
2 buildable lots so that somebody can't come in and even take a few more hundred,
Because they're proposed to create 2 lots. They actually could, under the regulations, simply come in for subdivision and create a 3rd lot, but they're agreeing that they will not do that. They're deed restricted. They also would agree to establish the contours specifically as shown on the plan, and that they would agree that they would not change those contours, and that no one in the future who buys those properties could change those.
That's what I mean, so they're buildable
Yeah,
as is.
so it's 2 lots.
That's
Further-
enforceable
Yeah.
as to a future owner?
Yes, they'd actually put that in a deed restriction. So, and the attorneys would assumably work that out.
Knowing how fickle the economy can be, what happens if 2 years expires and they're
not
only
done.
halfway through the excavation?
Well,
And we have a
don't
site
renew.
that's
Yep.
half complete.
What
happens then?
What the commission
Right.
in what the commission has done in the past is you've actually made, I think it was Janeski, he said, there's a drop dead date where this thing ends. Let's assume it's 2 years. That day, it ends, no more material comes off the site. They'll have the driveway in, because they won't be able to take it out without the driveway, that's phase 1, and they'll take the material off, but let's say they only get out 80,000 yards. You can write it up to say, the town engineer, after that date, will get together, and if there's material still left on the site, they put together with the town engineer, they come up with final grades that will exist on the site without removing any additional material.
So that would mean it would cost them a lot, then? It would cost them a buildable lot?
No,
Because let's say-
no, I think-
No, it would. If they've done this part,
If they did the Marshall side, no,
but now they have,
lot.
the 2 years they've been messing around there, they didn't do this part, it's over.
I suspect they could push the material around, though, come up with final grades that would still give them 2 lots.
So why don't we do that ahead of time? I mean, if we're going to do this, say, by the end of X date, you've got to end up with this final grade. And in
Well,
4 months before that, you got to start working towards that, because that's what we expect.
Yeah. I think that
I don't think we can get in.
the plan itself shows final grades, and the proposal is to get that done in 2 years.
Right, but it's saying, what if it's halfway
But if
done,
it
it's got a
doesn't-
cliff, it's a big
Yeah.
mess, and the 2 years are up?
Well, you bond and then right?
Well, I think that you could say that's it. It's over, and
But then this lot is not,
It's a mess.
yeah, but I think they could move the material around, though. Would you say so,
Well,
Kevin?
now you're saying-
They took
you're
out
saying two
50,000
things.
yards.
I would
instead of-
think-
You know, if they
Two
only
different
took, if they only took out 30,000 yards, then they're going to have a problem.
Yes.
If they took out 80, you could probably do some
what if
regrading
say
to
they
get it
took
to
out
work.
30? Then what?
I'm sorry?
What if they only took out 30? Couldn't you just...
You got a
The
mess on
the
your
thing is,
Right.
Then they might lose a lot.
See, we haven't had this problem in the past because it was
No.
always removed
And taken.
Expeditiously
Yeah.
and stored someplace.
Yeah.
This is
Well-
strictly market driven.
Yeah, and to me, this is not our problem. To
That
me,
isn't our problem.
They should be
I agree.
taking it and getting in and out of there in a
You give
year,
them a 2-year
or
permit,
putting
you
it
say,
someplace else.
let's just, don't even say that, you
1-year
say it's a
permit.
2-year permit.
Yeah.
There's a drop dead date, and that's it.
And then after that, you can't excavate anymore.
That's right.
Yeah, but we
I
don't
don't
want to
care
be
how
left
much you
with a
do.
mess. It has to be...
No, I don't think it would be, because,
Well, this
first of all,
guy's-
we'll take a bond.
Yeah, and I think we should make the bond big enough where it
Reclamation bond big
really
enough.
hurts.
What if
I
we did
mean,
a
make
one-year
it a
permit?
penalty.
That's
That's
they
what
have
I'm
to
saying,
store it
yeah.
someplace.
To me, they should have to store that.
Yeah.
I mean,
If you
we are
if you
putting
fail,
people, we're putting people out of their, in the environment of the folks that live around, not
Yeah.
North Woods or Silver Street,
Yeah.
but the local folks there that own homes, they're being put out. They're losing their tranquility, they're losing everything that they love about their homes. And to me, so that the applicant can make more money, it doesn't cut it.
That's not our
I
responsibility.
feel it ought to be a year at the most, get in and out and get it done, store it somewhere.
See, now I would give them the 2 years, but I would say no activity between May 1 and October 1.
that's
Two
the,
winters.
That's hard,
you
but
can't do
that's-
that. You can't
You
do that.
can't do that.
That's the construction.
But that's ridiculous.
That's a
You
good
can't take that away from them.
Yeah, you can't do that.
That's like saying you can't sell. You can remove it, but you can't charge anybody
Then
for
1
it.
year it is. I mean,
No, so I
I'd say then just get it out in 1 year.
Yeah, but you know what it is? If you do
What?
1 year, it means you've got trucks
It
going
means it's
in
gonna
and
be more
out.
intensive.
You know, it's the amount of material that's going to drive the
It
annoyance.
should
It's
be
not
costing
the...
2 summers, 2 of their summers where they can't be outside.
I don't know that that's completely true. I don't know. I think the noise is not going to be that crazy. I think that's an exaggeration.
No kidding, they said 13 trucks a day.
Yeah, that's
That's 1 hour.
1.3 an hour. 1.3 an hour.
And it is far away with the first year.
Except
No Saturdays and
for the
Sundays.
poor lady, Mrs. Varga, across the street.
Right.
Yeah, she's going to suffer
She's
the
the
most,
one who's
clearly.
going to have
After
this.
5 at night.
Well, I mean, what if they did have to do a year?
That's right.
But these ladies are at home all the time. Well, Mrs. Varga works, so she's a nurse, well.
Yeah, but still.
But still.
Can we even do it for a year?
Kevin has a comment.
Yes, Kevin, please.
If I could, I know you're trying to look at time periods, and having been in the engineering construction area for a long time, in my opinion, the 2-year time period is a reasonable period of time that gives them an opportunity to respond to projects which may be coming up, their own uses, their ability to sell the product, and like they're selling the sand and gravel. I mean, I don't know why there's a mystery to that.
That's not our
But the other thing is if they have to move it twice, you also have to consider the environmental cost. You've got to truck it twice. You've got a machine working it twice. You have perhaps more, construction equipment running around, so that there is an environmental cost for moving it twice, just as there is for leaving it there. I worked on the septic system repair plan in Canton, and originally the contractor was telling me he was going to get his septic fill from Glastonbury because that was the only place he could get it. So you've got the environmental cost of trucking it all the way from Glastonbury across the river into the valley here because there isn't enough gravel here.
But our responsibility is to the neighbors here.
I understand that. But I just...
It's a trade-off.
Is the septic quality sand up there?
It sounds like a lot of it will be.
Wow, that's very expensive.
Yeah, I think about $27 a yard at the site.
Wow.
We used to figure $13 a yard in place, but it's getting very difficult to find.
Because there's no places that have that kind of sand anymore.
No, there's plenty of sand available.
But we're on the other side of the river?
You just can't get a permit to dig it. That's,
Kevin, explain the initial part. You want to get up there. The phase one
Right.
happens how quickly and how much activity is that?
Phase one is something they're going to want to get done and over with very quickly. I think they were talking 30 days,
I thought
maybe.
I thought it was 2 weeks.
Yeah, they were saying 2 weeks. That's really flying. If they said 30 days, I would think that would be reasonable. Get the opening in and get it stabilized, and so that they can get all their equipment up into the site, and then they would work, removing the material.
Well, just to clear it and stump it, it's going to take
But
several weeks.
they're not going to clear and stump the whole piece, but they're going to clear and stump
As they go.
As they go, too.
And they've got limits on the plan as to how much area they would have cleared and stumped ahead of where they're removing the material.
And
And
then
what do they do with the stumps? Just grind them up and leave them there?
No, they're hauling everything off.
Nothing can be left on site. The only thing they might do is they'll chip some brush. Typically what we do or recommend is that they leave a big pile of wood chips. If you've been out to the Gatehouse subdivision, they've got a big pile of wood chips there. They're very, you could use them for stabilizing slopes, temporary
Erosion control.
sedimentation.
Yeah.
I'm sorry?
I was
Erosion.
going to say, put them on steep slopes.
Yeah.
Temporarily.
Yeah, so, but nothing will be buried on site. We cannot do that anymore.
What's the closest distance their earth moving is to the property line at the Lewandowski end?
And the change plan, let's look at
Yeah,
that.
the
They
change
used to
plan.
be able to.
The new
I got this. Thank you. Their property line?
Yeah.
That was last one? Yeah, they said 75 feet in this plan?
That's going to stay wooded. And then it's another, 25, 50 feet to the house?
I've got that clean in.
Well, the closest grading, I think, is
Yeah, we're having our discussion now.
70,
Yeah, because Eric wants to be part of this too.
Yeah, I know, so the more we do now.
75
Yeah,
feet.
it's just good to get us.
And I'm sorry,
75
I'm
feet.
tired, about ready to go to bed.
yeah, and I gotta get up early tomorrow.
Okay.
I drive to Keene, New Hampshire.
Will you be able to
at
be here at the
5.
next meeting for a discussion?
Sure.